crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women.
One man, one sword, one brutal quest for vengeance. Conan the Barbarian didn't just launch Arnold Schwarzenegger's career.
Conan.
It reshaped the fantasy genre with raw violence, unforgettable imagery, and an epic soundtrack. But behind the muscles and mayhem, the making of this cult classic was filled with strange, dangerous, and hilarious moments. Here are 20 weird facts you didn't know about Conan the Barbarian from 1982. Number 1. Conan's first line is uttered 24 minutes into the film. For a movie named after its hero, Conan the Barbarian takes its time before letting the character speak. Despite being the central figure, Conan doesn't utter a single word until nearly 24 minutes into the runtime. His first line, however, is nothing short of iconic. When the Mongol general asks him what is best in life, Conan replies with the legendary words, "To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women." The line became one of the most quoted in movie history. Interestingly, Arnold Schwarzenegger was originally set to narrate his own story, giving him far more dialogue.
"To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women."
But producers ultimately decided to hand the narration over to actor Mako, whose voice and delivery were much clearer and more commanding. Number 2. Charles Bronson and Sylvester Stallone were considered. Before Arnold Schwarzenegger swung the broadsword, producers looked at several rugged actors for the role of Conan. Charles Bronson, already a Hollywood tough guy, was on their list, as was Sylvester Stallone, who had exploded in popularity after Rocky. Both had the grit, but neither had the physical presence that would define Conan. The breakthrough came when the producers watched Pumping Iron, the bodybuilding documentary that showcased Schwarzenegger's charisma, size, and confidence. To them, he wasn't just an actor who could play Conan, he was Conan. Even legendary critic Roger Ebert later backed the decision, writing that Schwarzenegger's casting was inevitable and praising the way he and co-star Sandahl Bergman physically embodied their characters. In the end, Schwarzenegger's sheer presence made him the only real choice, turning what could have been a curiosity into a career-defining role. Number 3. Schwarzenegger underwent 18 months of training. Becoming Conan was no small feat, even for a world-class bodybuilder like Arnold Schwarzenegger. To fully inhabit the role, he dedicated 18 months to an intense regimen that went far beyond lifting weights. He trained in horseback riding, sword handling, and stage combat, working closely with martial arts master Kiyoshi Yamazaki to perfect the art of looking both brutal and graceful in battle. On top of that, Schwarzenegger took acting lessons to refine his screen presence and let his natural charisma shine through. He even grew out his mane of long hair, which was completely real, no wig involved. The dedication paid off, as his performance helped turn Conan the Barbarian into a cult classic and remains one of his most iconic roles.
"I've never prayed you before. I have no tongue for it."
It was the moment Schwarzenegger proved he could be more than a muscle-bound athlete. He could be a movie star. Number 4. The film took inspiration from many sources. Writer-director John Milius poured a wide range of influences into Conan the Barbarian, creating a world that felt ancient, mystical, and brutal all at once. A lifelong admirer of Japanese culture, he drew from samurai traditions and even Japanese ghost stories. One of his favorite films, Masaki Kobayashi's Kwaidan, inspired much of the tone and atmosphere in Conan's mythic world. The film also owes a debt to fantasy artist Frank Frazetta. Many shots were directly inspired by his famous paintings. While the script drew from Robert E. Howard's original Conan tales, Milius also pulled from later works by L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter, including The Thing in the Crypt. Production designer Ron Cobb layered even more inspiration into the visuals, blending Egyptian symbols, Celtic and Nordic architecture, and even Mesoamerican imagery. The result was a fantasy world that felt like it had sprung from multiple civilizations' myths at once. If you're enjoying this so far, hit that like button and subscribe for more awesome movie facts. And tell us in the comments, what movie brings you the most nostalgia, and which one should we cover next? Number 5. The film contains many allusions to Genghis Khan. Conan's first line of dialogue, "To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women," isn't just memorable, it's also rooted in history. The line is a shortened version of a quote often attributed to Genghis Khan, describing the Mongol warlord's idea of life's greatest pleasures.
"To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women."
The filmmakers didn't stop there with Khan references. In one sequence, Conan flees from a pack of vicious dogs, a clever nod to the fact that Genghis Khan himself was famously terrified of them. Even the film's constant references to steel tie back to the Mongol conqueror. As a boy, Khan's birth name was Temujin, meaning finest steel. Conan's companion Subutai adds another layer of connection. While not from Robert E. Howard's original stories, Subutai is based on a real Mongol general and close ally of Genghis Khan, reinforcing the film's ties to warrior history. Number 6. Ridley Scott turned it down. Finding the right director for Conan the Barbarian was a long and winding process. The earliest draft was written by Oliver Stone, who also wanted to direct the film himself. However, the studio didn't trust Stone with such a massive production and passed on the idea. For a time, Stone was even considered to co-direct alongside special effects wizard Joe Alves, but that plan fizzled out quickly. With no director locked in, the producers turned their attention to Ridley Scott. Fresh off the success of Alien, they hoped Scott's visionary style would elevate the sword and sorcery epic.
Conan.
But he ultimately declined the offer. It wasn't until legendary producer Dino De Laurentiis stepped in that things moved forward. He handed the script to John Milius, best known for writing Dirty Harry, who then reshaped the story and finally brought Conan to life on the big screen. Number 7. The film was too violent. Director John Milius originally pushed Conan the Barbarian into extreme territory, delivering a cut that even hardened producer Dino De Laurentiis found excessive.
"To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women."
His version was loaded with gore, lingering on brutal kills and savage moments that pushed beyond what mainstream audiences could handle at the time. One infamous example was the death of Conan's mother, which was originally staged as a far bloodier, drawn-out sequence before being reshot into the still gruesome version that remains in the final film. Other violent bits were trimmed entirely and dumped on the cutting room floor. While a handful of those moments resurfaced in certain home video releases, most of Milius's original vision was permanently lost. What remains is already a brutal and bloody epic, which leaves fans wondering just how extreme the unseen footage might have been. Number 8. The film angered animal rights activists and environmentalists. Conan the Barbarian didn't just spark controversy for its violence. The production itself drew the ire of both animal rights groups and environmentalists. The American Humane Association, tasked with monitoring animals on set, reported multiple troubling incidents. A dog was allegedly kicked, horses were forcibly tripped during stunts, and perhaps most infamously, Arnold Schwarzenegger actually punched a camel in the face, a scene that was left in the final cut. The use of live animals under such rough conditions left activists outraged, but the criticism didn't stop there. The filmmakers also constructed elaborate sets in the salt marshes of Almerimar, Spain, significantly altering the landscape and leaving environmental groups furious. Protests arose over the damage caused to the fragile ecosystem. Between its graphic violence and questionable production practices, the film left behind more than just cinematic controversy. It stirred real-world outrage that followed it well beyond theaters. Number 9. The dogs were actually vicious. The dogs that chased Conan through the desert weren't movie-trained pets. They were genuinely dangerous. Both director John Milius and Arnold Schwarzenegger confirmed in commentary that these animals were extremely aggressive, and during filming, Arnold was quite literally running for his life. Outtakes included on home video editions show Schwarzenegger looking terrified as the hounds leap at him, biting and clawing with real force. The attacks were so intense that the crew had to carefully time each take, since the dogs often ignored commands. According to interviews, the dogs were so unpredictable they even turned on their trainer between scenes. Far from special effects or clever editing, Conan's desperate sprint across the sands was frighteningly real. Number 10. The Serpent Cult was based on a real-life cult. Thulsa Doom's terrifying serpent-worshipping followers weren't just fantasy. They had roots in history. Oliver Stone drew inspiration from the Flagellants, a medieval religious cult that whipped themselves publicly during the bubonic plague, believing extreme suffering would win God's mercy and spare them from death. The imagery of ritual pain and blind devotion fed directly into the design of Doom's snake cult. But the influence didn't stop there. Elements of the character were also inspired by notorious cult leaders of the 1970s, including Charles Manson and Jim Jones, whose manipulation and power over their followers shocked the world. By the time the film came out in the early 1980s, America's anti-cult movement was in full swing, making Conan's evil snake cult a perfect reflection of real fears of the era. Number 11. Conan got Schwarzenegger back into professional bodybuilding. By the time Arnold Schwarzenegger landed the role of Conan, he had already retired from competitive bodybuilding and was fully focused on acting. But the rigorous training demanded for Conan the Barbarian reignited his old competitive fire. Preparing for the role required months of intense weight training, sword practice, and endurance work, which left him looking as massive and defined as ever. The transformation didn't go unnoticed in the bodybuilding world. Motivated by the shape he was in, Schwarzenegger decided to make a surprise comeback at the 1980 Mr. Olympia contest, and won, controversially, for the 7th time. The victory was seen as fueled, at least in part, by the grueling training for Conan, proving that the film didn't just relaunch his movie career, but briefly pulled him back into bodybuilding glory. Number 12. The cast enjoyed drinking blood. Well, kind of. Conan the Barbarian required gallons of fake blood for its many battle sequences. But the extreme cold on set caused problems. The special effects team used a thick crimson concentrate that was meant to be mixed with water. Unfortunately, the freezing temperatures made the mixture solidify almost instantly. To solve the issue, the crew swapped water for vodka, which kept the blood liquid even in brutal weather conditions. The result? During takes where actors had to spit out blood after being struck, many of them ended up swallowing it instead, meaning they were downing mouthfuls of vodka on set. Some performers even started accidentally drinking more than they should, requesting fresh blood batches between takes. For some cast members, those long, violent battle scenes turned into a hidden happy hour. Number 13. The original script was set in a post-apocalyptic future. Before John Milius came on board, Oliver Stone wrote the first draft of Conan the Barbarian, and his version was wildly different from the film we know. Stone envisioned Conan not in a mythic Hyborian age, but in a dystopian, post-apocalyptic future where ancient sorcery and advanced technology collided. His script reportedly featured armies of mutants, massive battles against grotesque creatures, and an almost science fiction tone that leaned closer to Mad Max than Robert E. Howard's original stories. The ambitious script would have required more than $70 million to produce in the early 1980s, a budget that studios flat out refused. Dino De Laurentiis later hired John Milius to rework the material into a more grounded sword and sorcery epic, which ultimately became the Conan the Barbarian audiences know today. Number 14. Conan's sword was displayed over the governor's desk. Conan's massive broadsword didn't just stay in the realm of cinema, it followed Arnold Schwarzenegger into real life. After the success of Conan the Barbarian, Arnold kept one of the iconic swords as a personal memento. Years later, when he became the governor of California, he proudly mounted it on the wall above his desk in the governor's office. For Schwarzenegger, it wasn't just a prop. It symbolized discipline, strength, and the hard work that had carried him from bodybuilding champion to Hollywood star, and finally, to politics. Few film relics have been given such a prominent place in real-world history. Number 15. Schwarzenegger and Sandahl Bergman did their own stunts. When it came to the brutal action in Conan the Barbarian, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sandahl Bergman didn't rely on body doubles because they couldn't find any. Both actors had such unique physiques that no stunt performers looked remotely like them. As a result, Schwarzenegger and Bergman performed nearly all of their own fight sequences, horseback riding, and dangerous stunts. This included swinging massive swords, handling heavy shields, and charging into chaotic battle scenes.
You don't even have a rope. Two fools who laugh at death.
Bergman, who had a background in dance, impressed director John Milius with her agility and intensity, while Schwarzenegger brought raw strength and stamina. The commitment to authenticity meant they walked away with plenty of bruises and scrapes, but it gave the film a visceral realism that fans still admire today. Number 16. The tomb was originally Atlantis. According to Oliver Stone's original script, the eerie tomb where Conan discovers his legendary sword wasn't just a random crypt. It was meant to be a remnant of the lost city of Atlantis. This detail tied Conan's weapon to an ancient, mythical civilization, giving the blade an even greater sense of power and destiny. Though the Atlantis reference never made it into the finished film, the sequence still carries a haunting, otherworldly atmosphere. Fans of Robert E. Howard's stories often note that Atlantis is referenced in the Conan mythos, so the script's idea wasn't far off from the source material. Number 17. Sandahl Bergman lost part of her finger while filming. Playing Valeria required Sandahl Bergman to dive into brutal sword fights, often with little margin for error. In one particularly intense sequence, things went wrong, and she accidentally had the tip of one of her fingers sliced off during a clash of blades. The injury was painful and shocking, but Bergman continued working despite it, showing remarkable toughness. She later joked about the accident, treating it as just another battle scar from a demanding shoot. It's a reminder of how dangerous the practical stunt work of Conan the Barbarian could be for the actors involved. Number 18. Some stuntmen were paid extra to die faster. The film's epic battles required dozens of stunt performers to play soldiers, cult members, and enemies, falling under Conan's sword. But not every stuntman went down quickly. Some dragged out their death scenes a little too long, rolling around dramatically instead of just collapsing. This created delays on set, so the crew came up with a solution. They actually paid the stuntmen extra just to stay down once they were killed. It became a running joke, but it also saved valuable shooting time. Number 19. Milius wanted Schwarzenegger as the narrator.
No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad.
Director John Milius originally envisioned Arnold Schwarzenegger not only as the face of Conan, but also as the voice guiding the story. His plan was to have Arnold narrate the tale himself, adding an extra layer of gravitas to the journey. However, Universal executives pushed back hard. At the time, Arnold's thick Austrian accent was still a major concern for Hollywood, and the studio feared audiences would struggle to understand him over long stretches of narration. Reluctantly, Milius agreed to change course and handed the narration to Japanese-American actor Mako, who also played the Wizard. Mako's clear, commanding delivery ended up giving the movie its mythic tone and iconic opening, while Arnold's few words remained powerful in their own right. Number 20. The set burned down after a botched torch throw. One of the film's most dramatic sequences involved Conan hurling a flaming torch into the palace's grand central window. The shot was designed to ignite the set and create a fiery climax, but Schwarzenegger didn't quite hit the mark on his first throw. Unfortunately for the production, there was no second chance. The torch still caught the structure ablaze, and the massive palace set was completely consumed by fire. Since it had been built specifically for that moment, there was no opportunity to rebuild or redo the shot. What ended up on screen was essentially the only take they got. Ironically, the accident gave the scene a raw intensity that fit perfectly with Conan's brutal world, even if it came at the expense of an expensive set. Steel, Fire, Blood, and Legends. Conan the Barbarian wasn't just a movie, it was a battle both on and off the screen. Which of these facts blew your mind the most? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more wild behind-the-scenes stories from cinema's most iconic films.